Welcome back to the channel. Tonight I am going to be doing something that I've been kind of putting off because it's not necessarily hard, but it's going to be a little bit labor intensive. So both the front seats on the Aristo have what is presumed to be a stripped gear that prevents them from moving back and forth. Well, the passenger seat is very forward, and basically anybody who's taller than about 5 foot, their knees are jammed into the dash. Well, can't have that. My wife's like 5'9", 5'10", like me, and that's not comfortable. And we're planning to take this thing on a trip here in like 3 weeks. So that's not going to work. So I'm going to take you guys through what it takes to fix the gears on the electric seats for a Toyota or Lexus. I'm pretty sure they're all the same. Now, this is not something that I figured out on my own. Actually, the guy that I bought the car from, Daniel, he directed me towards another company who actually manufactures these gears because they're no longer available. So I'm going to show you guys that. I'm also going to put a link in the description for their website and to the video that I used and referred to for actually doing this fix. But again, I'm not taking the credit here. These guys did a great job. They have a write-up on their site, and they have videos on their YouTube channel. So, like I said, link in the description. Yeah, I'm going to show you these parts. Alright, so you guys can see these little helical gears. Basically, they are what moves the seat forwards and back with the motor. So what tends to happen, I guess, is there's this little topper here, this little cap, that kind of holds things in place. And if you lose this, then the shaft is able to move around. You can kind of see in the bottom there. But then it allows this gear to screw up, and it will strip the gear. So then usually it'll strip only one of them. Sometimes they're both stripped, but what happens is the seat will just like cock sideways, and then it kind of screws all that up. So these need to be replaced because they strip and then it doesn't move. So the company, I'm probably going to butcher this name, but it's Gamiviti, I think. They actually mess with the Toyota and Lexus versions of the Land Cruiser and the variants of those like larger SUVs. They do a lot of off-road stuff. So check them out. Check their channel out. Very informative. If you mess with those at all, they're great trucks. But if you mess with them all, definitely check out his channel. He does a lot of like DIY stuff. So I'm going to figure out what all we need to get this seat out. The thing that sucks is it doesn't move. So the front 2 bolts are going to be a bit of a chore to get to. So I'm going to figure out what we need. I'll lay it out, let you guys know what we need. And in case you guys are trying to fix one of these seats, I think they're 14 millimeter. That's usually what a Toyota seat bolt is a 14 mil. So like I said, I'm going to figure out what we need, lay it out, show you guys. Then I'm going to get the seat out, and you guys will get to watch me struggle because I'm not a big dude. I'm tall, but dad bod. Definitely lacking in the muscles, and I think the seat's like 100 pounds, so get to watch me struggle. Okay, guys, before I get totally into this, you guys can see just how close this seat is. Let me grab some of the tools. It's really, really close. Now, I got the kids' car seats back here, but I moved that. So I have clear access to the back bolts. So I'm going to take those out first, but let me show you guys, and I hope you guys can see. I can't get to anything up here. So I think what I'm going to have to do, because I can't even see the bolts, They have the little covers. They have like a plastic cover on them. So I can't even see the bolts at all to even see if maybe I could put like a ratchet wrench or something on it because the seat is so far forward. So what I'm going to end up doing or trying to do is actually manually turn the screws back. The way that it sounds, it almost sounds like when one of the teeth or one of the gears stripped, I think some of the plastic is actually stuck in like one of the gears, so it actually just like struggles to move. So it's not like the seat is cocking side to side. I think what happened is it stripped one of the teeth off, and then that broken tooth is actually stuck in the gear. So now it doesn't want to move at all. So I'm going to try to manually move it back using, here's like the nuts on the front. So I'm going to try to move this thing back. Hopefully I don't screw anything up worse than it already is. So I'm going to try that, and I'll get back to you. Alright guys, good news. I got it to move a little bit. It was definitely jammed up. It definitely was totally just crammed all the way forward, and I think that's probably what stripped the gears. But that little cap is definitely missing or loose. I can see it kind of rattling around in there, so that's probably what happened. It causes for misalignment. So I got the back bolts out, and I'm going to show you guys what you need to do to walk this seat back. I just hope you guys can actually see. I'm going to set you down in here so you guys can check it out. Alright, so I know this isn't great lighting, just using my flashlight, but I got a 12 millimeter. There's a nut over here that you actually need to take off eventually, but you can see when I move it, but it's actually cocking the seat a little bit, so I have to kind of like walk it back. But I'm getting there. You could obviously use like power tools here, but everything's kind of screwy as it is, so I didn't want to run the risk of screwing anything up by using a power tool in this situation, because it's already pretty screwy. Well, this seat goes back pretty far. We gotta be getting close to the back, right? Watch, I'm gonna run this thing right off the rails. Oh, there we go. That's it. We're all the way back. So that's that. That's exciting. Yeah. So basically there's a drive here. I'm gonna get this thing out so you guys can see better. Yeah, so bolt here and here. 14 mil. These little plastic covers oddly enough, will fight you almost as hard as the bolt will, just without, you know, trying to get them off without breaking them. They're old, so. Success. Not broken. Let's see if I can get this one off here. Being at the house and not having everything you usually have, you get spoiled. Well, I'm going to get the seat out as soon as I get it on the cart and upside down. I'll show you guys what this thing looks like. Okay, bolts are out, seat moves. Make sure you unplug the seat. It does have a little like retaining clip here, so get that out of the actual seat bracket, unplug it, lay your wiring out of the way. Now, as I was doing that, I realized the seat belt is connected to the seat at the bottom, right here. So, I was looking down in here hoping for an easy removal of where it connects down there, but then I realized there must be an easier way where that disconnects in there, so I'm going to get the seat laid back into the back seat, and if it's not easy, I'm going to have to rebuild this thing in the car. I don't really want to do that. I want to have lots of room, well, moderate amount of room on this to where I can stand up and work. But yeah, got to figure this out. Okay, So I think you guys can guess. I fought with it for a minute, and I decided use a box. So I'm going to pull everything apart here. I will rebuild it on the cart, if possible. Now, the rails are currently the same, like, position. So I know I need to take these bolts off here, same as the other side. So then you have to hold this spot right there, and zip this 12 off right here. It looks like these are 6mm Allen bolts that are going to remove the actual unit itself. Like I said, I'm going to start on that side, get it apart. I know that you have to like unscrew this little coupler here, and then that little transmission deal pulls out, and I think that's the one that's in bad shape, but I think there's a pretty good chance this one's screwed up too. So I'm going to get as much apart as I can. It's going to be really hard for me to hold the camera, but I'm going to take you through the tools that I've used so far. Okay, so far, 14mm box end, open and box, just standard wrench. This is a 1/4 inch drive, 12mm. I used that so that I didn't put too much stress where it was kind of screwed up. That's what I used to operate the screwing mechanism when I was using the motor for the other side, because that one obviously works. I don't know that it's in great shape, but it works. Now this is 3/8 drive, 14. This is also to get the seats out. Then you've got this 12mm because I'm gonna have to use that on my little impact there. I don't have any vice grips here at the house, so these pliers are gonna have to do to zip everything apart for the little like jack screw deal. Little 6mm Allen T-handle. That's going to be used to get the bolts for the actual like transmission deal out. So we're just going to tackle this thing, and I'll check back with you guys because I'm here by myself. And yeah, oh, very important. You guys are going to need a box if you guys don't want to take this thing out. I was started to fight with getting these plastics off. You guys can see the actual switches were off. There is a bolt in there, and then that, you know, will allow you to take the seat all the way out. I'm going to try to do it just like this because it's not 100 pounds. I can lift it with one hand. It's actually, I think this thing's lighter than my SCs, my Lexus SC300 seats were from the factory. But yeah, so this is currently what I think is going to be the best option for me tonight. I'm just going to be very careful not to scratch the interior because I will warn you guys, every piece of metal under this seat is extremely sharp because it's not really meant to, you know, be messed with too much. So I'm going to get what I can apart, and I'll check back in with you guys once I have things in my hand. All right, we have success. So you end up having to take these little Phillips head screws out that hold that little jack shaft down at the bottom down here. But I got that side of the transmission out, and it's over here. And as suspected, which is the common issue, this little guy falls out. It allows for there to be play in here, and it strips the gear in here. But you can see here, this is just a little like shaft deal, and it's kind of like a spring almost that is used as a, you know, like a transfer case almost. So basically what you do is you flip it over. So this is how it comes, like this is how it was sitting in the car. Like this is the front of the seat here. So what you do is you flip it over, and there's a couple Phillips head screws. We're going to take those guys out real quick, see how bad it is, and go from there. Luckily, now I did get all of the stuff, but I only got 2 of these caps, but that may be all it requires. I'll replace this one for sure, but the driver's seat is also not in good shape. It doesn't move, but it's comfortable for me. So yeah, this guy needs to come apart. Oh yeah. This thing is totally wrecked. Totally chewed up. So, it's got a worm gear in there. And, it's metal. So, metal versus plastic, guys. Metal definitely wins. This guy got a bunch of old nasty grease. Now the grease that's in this tube I think is okay, but this is basically just plastic that's destroyed and a little bit of lithium grease. So I'm gonna clean this guy up. This has a seal on it, which it's almost like a felt rubbery situation, which we're not going to mess with too much here. Just going to put that kind of back the way that it is. Now this will need to be pressed off, and so you'll need a vise for that, but looks like it's just centered. So I'm going to clean this guy up. We're going to clean this guy up and end up using some of this with his. This is the looper plate. This is like a white lithium style, but the stuff is old school as can be. Made in Toledo, Ohio. So if you guys are looking for a great white lithium, now they make a graphite style as well, and it's amazing. I use that on all of like hard parts. But like I said, it's old school, man. So Dad turned me on to that, and we're gonna repack everything with this once this gets replaced with this. So you guys can see, not in good shape. This one is. So new gear, old gear. Alright guys, so what you need is like a tall socket that will fit over this guy, and then you're going to put it in your vise and basically press it off. I hope my vise goes big enough. It does. So get it lined up good. So probably have to put a little decent pressure on it. There it goes. Boom, you got your shaft off, and you can see there's like teeth in there, and that's to basically, it makes its own splines in the new gear. This socket is a 5/8. It's actually, it's a little big because it was trying to walk the gear sideways. So I think that what I'm going to do is use this this 9/16 instead on the way back in. It fits things a little bit better, and it might actually stop us where it needs to be stopped, but I'm going to clean this thing up real quick. And yeah, you know, this thing's really not focusing very well, but I'll show you guys that gear on the other bench where there's more light. Now guys, I took a minute to actually clean this thing up a little bit, get as much of the old nasty stuff off as I could, and now it's time to press this on. There is an open side on this guy, and then it must bottom out. So this guy is tapered just a little bit, and you guys will see where there's two grooves in this. Make sure you clean those things out, because this thing is going to be making its own splines in this. So I'm going to press this thing on the same way I pressed it off, but only the other way. I just need to make sure that I stop at the right spot. thing definitely, you can see where it made its own grooves. It looks pretty centered. I think I'm going to go with it. Yeah, basically you just want this thing to be centered up where it was. So I think we are good to go here. I think I'm going to measure it just to be sure. I don't think it's like super important to get this thing like within, you know, super close, but I just centered it. Yeah. So let's take it over, back over to the other bench. All right, we're back over here where there's some light, and you can see, I don't know if you can see, but I'm hoping you guys can see that where it made its own teeth in here, or I guess it made its own splines. So I'm just going to clean that plastic that came through. I'm going to clean it out here. I might have to get something a little more capable here. Well, now that's coming off now. But yeah. Yeah, I just don't want any of these shavings to go into the gears again and then screw them up. So I'm just going to go around. I've got a little screwdriver here. Again, this is all stuff that I keep at my house. All of my like professional mechanicking tools, minus this little Blue Point kit that is kind of my go racing kit or travel kit, I guess. It's stuff that I just keep here to work on like home projects. So this guy looks like it's pretty good. Now I'm trying to remember which way this thing went. It looks like this is down. So I'm going to grease this thing up. I already put some grease in here on that gear, and I cleaned it all up, a little worm gear in there. So I'm going to put some grease on this. I'm not going to go crazy, but I want to make sure that there's plenty of lubrication going on, because the last thing we need to do is tear up this new gear. Make sure you get some on the faces of the gear as well, because that's going to be what takes all the side load. So I'm going to drop this guy back in here. That looks right. However, something doesn't seem right. Maybe I have this backwards. Alright, you gotta put the cap on. So, duh. This thing, this is the old cap. This is the whole point of all this. Because this cap falls out, things are allowed to get out of alignment. So you can see this thing moving back and forth. So what happens, I think, is it probably bottoms out on that little worm gear thread and then jams up. So it'll go one way and it works nicely. I'll probably put some more grease in here just to be sure it's got plenty. Pull this back out. I'm going to pack it in there pretty good, I think. A little bit more than I originally was going to, but I think it calls for it. Make sure you, so you don't want to go that way. You want to go, so when you're screwing this end to get everything all nice and lubricated, you're going to go clockwise here, because it actually pulls the right direction and everything spins right. That's allowing all of this grease that I just put in to do what it's supposed to do. Now, I'm going to wipe my fingers off here, and it is time to get the new cap, and I need a big flathead screwdriver for that. Now I am going to put a little bit of grease down here. I don't want to go crazy, but just give it something, because this is basically the bushing that keeps things from tearing up again. So that goes down in there. And that was completely out, guys. That was totally out. And basically the only reason it didn't fall on the floor was because it was jammed up and couldn't fall on the floor. Now this is all plastic and it's old, so I'm not going to go bananas, but make sure you get it tight. Hey, that seems pretty good. You can turn both directions. I'm testing everything before I put this thing back together. I guess I'm testing it every time I put something back together. Feels pretty good. I think I can put it back together. I'm going to do that. Now, this thing looks kind of gross, so I'm going to clean some of the old grease out of here. That is like a fiber washer, I think. It's kind of gross. So I think that's basically, it's like a rope seal kind of thing. Kind of the thing that keeps it from leaking is the fact that it's saturated in grease. Well, keeps it from leaking for the most part. Like I said, if you guys clean all this stuff as best as you can while it's apart, that old grease is pretty gross, and it's like, it seems to be like really sticky. So that's what I'm noticing, is it's almost, it could be binding itself a little bit. Now everything is pretty greased up, and this goes back on like this. And you got these screws. Again, I'm going to tell you guys, use hand tools here. It's old plastic, guys. And don't go crazy. Like, you don't want them to fall out, obviously, but if you strip this thing, I don't think you could get a new one. It's working, so, and it feels good. It's nice and tight. Like I said, these guys, they really know what they're doing at the company that produces this stuff. So, new cap in here. This one probably would have worked just fine. I think that I will just save it as a spare in case, you know, something happens and I break this or whatever. I'm going to keep it as a spare because it's not broken or stripped or anything. It was just, you know, not where it should be. And that's what caused everything to bind up and strip. So this is moving good. I'm going to get the other part pulled out before I put this back in. And, yeah. Gotta get the other part. Alright, guys. So, to get this one out, you need to take this little bushing right here off. It's plastic. Be very careful with it. It's very important. You have to be able to drop this out to get the motor out. Now you need to unplug it here. And then the big part that is your little pro tip, but be careful. You can't access the two screws with this without completely dismantling the seat. Now, it's not very strong, so you can bend it a little bit. Now, this is steel, so bend it as little as you need to, like as little as you possibly can to get this out, okay? And then you're going to wiggle very gently till it disengages from here. This right here will now come out. So I'm going to get it on the bench, and we're going to take it apart. Alright, so got this piece out, but I wanted to show you guys the difference between these two. This thing is wrecked. And this is the one out of the other side, that's out of this piece here. But now we're going to move on to this. Now this one doesn't have the cap in the end because it's the actual motor itself. But everything else works pretty much the same. Two screws, going to pull it out. And yeah, pull it apart. I think we're pretty lucky here, actually. The teeth on this one don't look terrible. But I can tell you that there's definitely some, like, binding happening from the old grease that's in this plastic here. Because I can't even turn this thing, really. You can see how nasty that is. You know that... I don't know if that piece on the other was actually a fiber washer. I think it might have just been old grimy grease, maybe. Not really sure. I'm gonna leave it because it almost acts like a pad, so maybe it's supposed to be there. I'm not really sure, but this one's pretty dry in here, so that's not good in itself. But there's no broken metal, or I mean broken plastic in here, so I'm just gonna replace the gear so that it has a nice new gear. Yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna do. But yeah, the nasty side, like this doesn't even really want to turn really good. So guys, make sure you clean all of this really well and then re-lubricate it, because what happens is this old grease ends up just actually gumming things up. So I'm gonna go change this gear and clean this thing out, and then I'll show you guys just how to put this thing back together. Alright guys, so I kind of rushed a little bit. I'm glad I bought extras because I cracked this one, and I think what happened was it got a little bit crooked on it, and I turned it and went to move it, and I think it was just too far crooked already, and it when it pushed in even further, it just split. So because this is a press fit item and it's plastic, it cracked. But that was on me. Definitely not on the part. The parts, I put the other one back on. I will tell you guys, I took a piece of Scotch-Brite with a little bit of metal polish to this thing, and it looks 1000% better. The part that went in here that was all like gummy and didn't really want to turn. I would suggest doing a little bit of like fine, like ultra fine or fine Scotch-Brite, and get this completely cleaned off. Now the other one cleaned off really easily just with you know, like a paper towel, but I think because this one has a very large amount of load because it's the actual motor and it's turning all of it, I think this one takes a lot of the, you know, the pains from doing the most work. So there was like plastic or something or old grease or both, basically like completely stuck on the shaft here. So I got that cleaned off. Like I said, oops, fixed. The old one wasn't bad. I'll probably keep it because that's just the kind of person I am. I like to hoard things, I guess. I'm a hoarder a little bit, but we need to clean this up and get this back in there with some new grease. So I need to clean this up, but I need the brake clean. Alright, so this thing's back together. I'm going to clean this thing up just a little bit more. It needs to go back into its, back where it belongs. And I am going to tell you guys again, this is all plastic. All of this is plastic. Be careful. Don't go crazy. Just make sure you get enough lubrication in there, because obviously, because this is an electric motor, you can't just turn it like you could on the other. So, clean as much grease out as you can. Put plenty of new grease. Like I said, this lubriplate seems to work really good. And yeah, it's gonna go back together now. I will check back in with you guys once everything is back in place. Yeah. Alright guys, it's all back together. All your bolts. Make sure that this right here and this right here are the same distance from the stop to this bracket, or when you install all of this, it will be crooked and everything will break again. So make sure it's all... What I ended up doing was just basically running them all the way to the stops and putting them, you know, back there. So I will also suggest leave all of this stuff loose, including the stuff down here and down here, until you have everything back in there, because that little shaft right there has to be reconnected, and if it's not all loose, it won't go back together right. I can tell you, as silly as it sounds, you know, I'm suggesting it here because I figured that out the hard way. The next thing we're going to do is drop this thing down, or just lean it up so that this can plug into that right there, and we're going to test this to make sure it works. Alright, got everything plugged in. Time for our test. Alright, I think that's going to be good. Alright, we're all bolted back in. Now this thing is all the way back. Yeah. She works. There's a couple spots that are a little bit wonky, but obviously we couldn't get to the one, like worm gear to completely clean it out of all the old grease, so I really don't foresee us, moving this thing back and forth a bunch, but it moves nicely now. Before it didn't move at all. So, yeah, fixed. Now, if you guys found this video helpful and I was able to help you fix your car, you know, let me know in the comments below. If you tried on a USDM car and it works out great. I would assume that it does, because Toyota kind of this era like to use it all, you know, all the same kind of stuff. This in no way was like sponsored by the guys that made the gears, but definitely go to their Instagram, go to their, you know, social media stuff, give them a like. They do a lot for the Toyota off-road community, and it just happens to bleed over into the Toyota powered seats in general. So yeah, go over there, give them a like, and if you found this helpful, you know, consider subscribing. Check out some other videos that I have on the page, and yeah, I'll be back fixing more stuff on this old car. It's a great car, and we're fixing a little bit at a time, and yeah, I will see you guys soon. Bye.